Today I'm joined by Hayley Hurst, founder of Cohn Gray Connections. Hayley, thank you so much for joining me today. How are you doing?
Good. Thank you so much for having me, Karen.
It's my pleasure. Let's get into it, shall we? Can you share a little bit about your background and the journey that got you to where you are today?
Yes, of course. I spent many years working in high-end retail management and hospitality management. Then, when COVID hit and many people were pivoting careers and looking for remote work, I stumbled across a job posting for a matchmaker and I applied. It was about a 3 month application process. It was a long one. And I started working for another company that focuses on digital matchmaking. So essentially, what they do is they manage clients' online dating accounts so that the client doesn't have to put in any of that work. And I fell in love with the industry. I got very interested in matchmaking, and I hadn't known prior that this industry existed. I then went to school, got certified as a traditional matchmaker with the Global Love Institute. And then I went out on my own, opened my own agency called Cohn Gray Connections. And here we are a year and a half into that new journey.
Congratulations, and what an exciting journey and an interesting jump from management to matchmaking. Was there a particular thought or something that went through you when you saw that job posting? Like, what was it that attracted you to this space?
I think I've always had a passion for working with clients and customer service. And in some ways, that background with hospitality and retail management really did serve well in the transition into this industry. I've always had the mentality that the customer is always right. And I always try and go above and beyond for the client in whatever way that looks like. So whether that was in retail or, in restaurants and now in their love life, it really did lay a good foundational groundwork for clienteling.
So, in all those areas and job descriptions that you and your past journey, how has your definition of leadership changed throughout that time?
For me, the strongest leaders are the ones that build their team up. And if your staff or your team surpasses you in roles in your career, um, to me, that means you were a successful leader. So we are currently expanding in 2026. So this year, now that I had to remind myself we're in the new year, but I am now launching a new joint venture with a business partner, and we are growing the team. And there is going to be 4 people on the team. And I think my management experience prior, and even actually when I started working in the matchmaking industry, I did become a team lead and managed a team of matchmakers. And I think that throughout all of my years of management, I've always really tried to grow, help, and make sure that my entire team is happy in their roles and in their careers.
I love that. It's not just it's not just yourself that you're growing, but it's your team and your team members that you're helping to grow and elevate.
Yeah.
I love that. What's one question you think leaders should ask themselves more often but rarely do?
To me, it's really important. And I think that when I worked for other people, this wasn't always asked. And in some ways, it sort of relates to the industry I'm in. But what is your employee's love language, essentially? So some people are motivated by bonuses, financial gain. Other team members or staff that you may have would be motivated by recognition. positive words of affirmation. And I think that you really need to understand that everybody on your team is an individual. And I think more leaders need to, look at the individual person and make sure that you're kind of filling their cup.
So it sounds like you're meeting people where they are, you're speaking their language, and you're finding out what drives them.
Yeah, it's not one size fits all for everyone. And I think with matchmaking, this is also very important, understanding that two people are coming together, and creating a partnership. And so recognizing that you can still have a very successful partnership once you understand the other person's language.
Do you think leaders take enough time or put enough thought into trying to understand the team members around them?
I think some do. And I do think it's more rare, unfortunately, but I definitely do think there are some. I've had some great leaders that I've learned from. And I think that, also the ability to sort of what I mentioned before, the ability to allow your team to kind of surpass you makes you a successful leader, in my opinion.
So true, so true. What do you think? What is one truth about leadership or business that you would share with new entrepreneurs?
To me, there's room and growth for everyone. So I think that what I've recognized once going out on my own as an entrepreneur is that some entrepreneurs and some people feel very protective of their processes, um, their territories, so to speak. So if you're a matchmaker in a certain city, potentially you are kind of get your backup, I guess you should say, to the competition. But I would counter all of those things and say there's room for everybody. There's enough clients to go around for everyone. And what makes really great entrepreneurs and really good leaders is kind of sharing and collaborating, and welcoming others into your space.
So true. I couldn't agree more. What part of building your business really forced you to grow as a leader?
Well, I've always been a team player. So even when I opened my business alone, I never wanted to do it alone. So I've always been used to working with teams in management prior, and I've loved that type of environment. So I knew I wanted to become an entrepreneur and have control over the processes, the ethics, the entire customer experience, but I didn't want to do it alone. I wanted to build a team. So for me, I think when I first started getting to that point where I found the right team members was probably the largest challenge I had because I made some mistakes in the beginning with collaborating with the wrong people. Um, Anyways, I'm grateful to say that now I have the right team in place and a wonderful partner who's a dream. And so I think one thing I would say to leaders and entrepreneurs as well is making sure that you're surrounding yourself with the right colleagues, the right clients, and that positive group, because there's kind of no stopping anyone once you get there.
So let's unpack that a little bit. The right clients or the right colleagues. You mentioned positivity, but what else in your mind would fit under that umbrella of right colleague? What are you looking for?
Well, every industry is different. Matchmaking is not a regulated industry, so to speak. So, yes, some of us did go to school, some of us are certified, some didn't, and you don't have to be. And I don't think that means that you're not fabulous if you weren't certified. I do believe that, you don't have to go to school necessarily, but I think that making sure whoever you are collaborating with and you are working with has the same ethics and values surrounding the process of a client's contract, because it is an industry where there's no guaranteed outcome. So you cannot guarantee someone they're going to find their husband or wife, but it's important that you're working with people that feel the same way you do in relation to guaranteeing the services that the client is paying for, so that there's value in the process for the client, because it is an expensive service. And, it is important that we're still delivering for the client.
Right. So it sounds like you mentioned, it's more process based, not necessarily results based. Although the end result, the preferable end result, is to find a partner.
Yes.
Obviously, you can't guarantee that, but you want to provide value in that process of the search.
Yeah, there's a lot that goes, not everyone understands the back behind the scenes of matchmaking, and there's a ton of value that a client takes away in addition to finding their match. There's a lot of coaching, there's a lot of growth, there's, so many wonderful changes you see in people. They become more confident, they may change their style, they may get back into dating after 30 plus years of not. There's so much value that somebody can take away from the service. In addition, of course, to, as you mentioned, the main goal is the client's end goal. So if that's marriage, that is the matchmaker's main goal. If the client, so not everyone wants to get married. So if the client just wants a long-term relationship, or potentially they just want to learn how to navigate online dating again, like all of these things, there's values and there's different. It's why you can't really put a success rate on a service like this, because everybody's version of success looks different.
I can imagine. What's one piece of advice you'd give your clients?
For me, it's so cheesy, and I say it all the time, but it really is mindset. Like positivity and positive mindset is so powerful in this process. It's something that we do screen for before taking on a client, of course, but you can put yourself in a negative headspace if you've been online dating for years unsuccessfully, or you've had past relationship trauma. All of that is a challenge. So it's getting clear and focus and back to a positive space before starting down this journey.
And is that something you help coach people on in the beginning of the process?
Yeah, so sometimes if we go through a strategy session with a client, which essentially is almost like an intake, and it's really where we're deep diving into everything about past relationships and what it is that you're looking for in the future. And sometimes a client may think they're ready for the matchmaking process, but as matchmakers, we may pivot and suggest that we do a coaching program before starting the matchmaking process, because our goal is success, same as the clients. We want to be successful. So if we think that a client's not ready, we will definitely refer out before they start.
Yeah, it sounds like building a really solid foundation from which to move forward with.
Absolutely.
Looking back, what's one piece of advice you'd give yourself earlier on in your entrepreneurial journey?
There's a few things I would say, but just keep going. Like one thing I did um, in the beginning of all of this was try and try again and try again. And I'm known for, some of my colleagues will laugh and say, well, Hayley's going to try. And I used to email for press articles, and I'd get some people would say no, and then I'd go back with a counter proposal. And, eventually you get the yeses. So I think you just have to keep trying, and I would introduce myself to colleagues that I admired, pop into people's DMs, as they say. So I would do that with other colleagues or companies that I really wanted to connect with. And I think many people, not all of us, I shouldn't say all of us, but many people feel uncomfortable doing things like this, like podcasts or reels on social media, and just putting yourself out there for criticism, but also for, visibility. And I think you just have to do it because everybody's going to have an opinion and you're not going to be everyone's cup of tea, but you're going to be somebody's.
That's right. And the only way to find out whose cup of tea you are is to really put yourself out there
Yeah.
and connect with as many people as you can. What's a big success or win that you're really proud of?
Well, in my first year and a half of being on my own with this agency, we did have three engagements and two marriages that I had a hand in. Like, a matchmaker makes the introduction. The reality is the two people, follow it through and walk down that relationship together. But and for some people it happens faster than others. If you're an older client in your late 70s, you may be married within a couple months. So um, it was a huge win for me because it just solidified what I already knew in my gut, which was that I was meant to be in this industry, but that it was working. And although I had played a role in things like this working for another company, it felt different when it was on my own.
I can imagine. And kudos to you and congratulations for getting those early wins. It's always nice to have some validation, like you said, in doing what you're doing. You knew you're on the right path, but to have that external validation is a feather in the cap.
Yes, thank you. And there really is nothing better than getting those messages from people. I had a client this New Year's that sent me a text and said, it was a picture of her and her fiance, and they were cheersing, and they said, "Cheers to Hayley," for introducing them. But when two people find their partner, it's life changing.
I was just going to say, you are changing people's lives by
Yeah.
introducing them and creating a partnership as a result of them meeting.
Yes.
We all learn things when doesn't go well. Was there a time when something didn't go as you expected? And what did you learn from that?
Many times, I think I I do I do believe in just continuing to keep trying. So, um, you have to constantly remind yourself that nothing worthwhile in life is really easy. And I know that that's a standard statement and we all say it, but we don't necessarily act on those things. And when I look at people that I admire that are entrepreneurs, Mel Robbins, Emma Grede, some of these people that I listen to, it wasn't always easy. They worked a lot of thankless jobs prior. Maybe they had financial struggles. Maybe there were family issues. And in everybody's life, everyone has a story. All of these factors in someone's life plays a role, especially in their entrepreneurial journey. And I think just um, continuing to show up every day and know that this too shall pass and not every day is going to be perfect. It really does pay off in the end.
I so agree. And I think the other thing on that is how you grow as a person. They say, entrepreneurship is the best personal development program out there. So you're not just building your business, you're building yourself. And as you build yourself, your business grows.
100%.
So you're a new entrepreneur, you're a year and a half in the business. What does the next chapter of your business look like for you? And what are you excited to create in the next 12 months?
I'm so excited to launch this new joint venture and to not be in this alone and to grow a team. I think that I took a lot of time choosing those individuals. And I'm very grateful. And I'm grateful to, continue to grow and watch what comes next. And I think it's so nice to not be alone. I mean, this industry, matchmaking, I've heard it said a million times, it's not for the faint of heart. It is a very emotional space. And although there are so many wonderful days where you're hearing about the engagements and all the connections. Those things are wonderful, but there's also another side to it, which is sometimes disheartening when relationships don't work out or dates go poorly. So I think it is really nice to have your teammates along for the ride. And so that's very exciting for me in 2026.
Well, I'm excited for you. Can't wait to see what you build in the next year. Hayley, thank you so much for joining me today. Where can our listeners find you online?
Yes. So our website, cohngrayconnections.com. You can also scan the QR code on the Zoom backdrop. We are on Instagram. Our handle is at Cohn Gray Connections. And then on LinkedIn, I'm Hayley Hurst. And you can reach out to me on any of those platforms, as well as Facebook, Hayley Hurst, or Cohn Gray Connections. And as of right now, we're still small enough where I'm managing the socials. So you'll hear from me personally if you do.
We'll be sure to have those links in the show notes below. And thanks again so much for joining me today on the Leadership Lab.
Thank you so much, Karen. It was such a pleasure.
Thank you for spending your time with me today on the Leadership Lab podcast. My hope is that this conversation sparked a new perspective or reinforced something you already knew. Until next time, keep leading with curiosity and intention.